Thrilled to be joined now by filmmaker Ami Horowitz. Ami, thanks so much for joining me today. I want to talk about some breaking news out of New York City. And I've spoken on this program before about Zohran Mamdani, the Democrat socialist running for mayor. He's won the Democrat primary. Fascinating revelations in the New York Times that when he applied to Columbia University, and this has all come out because Columbia University's records have been hacked, he applied as partially African American. Well, he's of South Asian Indian parentage, but he was born in Uganda. But doesn't that kind of make him about as much of an African American as Elon Musk, who was born in South Africa?
Yeah, look, James, we're all African American, right? Because we all come from Africa. So I guess technically that's true. I mean, he's got as much African American as him as Elizabeth Warren has Native American. So yeah, no, that tracks. That doesn't. I mean, that's who we're talking about, right? This guy is look. Just recently, he was talking about his working class roots, how difficult it was in the mean streets of private universities and private high schools, growing up in the home of a anti-American celebrated filmmaker, an anti-American Columbia professor. Yeah, look, he has these problems because he couldn't get into these schools, so he's got to put his application, he's African American, to get a heads up, and he can't win the votes of working class New Yorkers because they understand that they cannot afford to live in his fantasy world, right? His Marxist socialist, they live in the today. They live in reality. They live in the world where if you defund the police, they're not going to be safe. They can't walk their streets without the police, right? Look, he won the luxury belief crowd, right? He won Williamsburg, and he won Tribeca and Greenwich. You know what he didn't win? He didn't win the Bronx. He didn't win Washington Heights. He lost the black and Hispanic vote, the working class New Yorkers. That's why he's got to fake everything. Fake that he's working class. Fake that he's African American. This is Mamdani in a nutshell.
And so break it down for us then. What are this guy's chances? People have said, well, he won the Democrat primary, but off of a sliver of the overall vote. What are the chances that Eric Adams, who is the mayor and is now running as an independent, manages to get enough people pulling around behind him so that they don't turn New York into, some other city like San Francisco or Chicago that has gone down this route of Democrat socialism?
Look, here's a hot take, James. I don't think he's going to win. I don't. He is, well, the caveat to that, of course, is if the egomaniac Cuomo doesn't understand he's going to bow out, so he doesn't split the vote with Adams. In that case, Mamdani probably will win. But short of that, assuming that he could be convinced to put his massive ego aside for a moment and back out for the good of New York City, which he claims he wants, though there's been no evidence of that. Look, the reality is, I think that people are starting to get a little bit of buyer's remorse. Well, I mean, the white women, upper class women who vote, the Yenta class, as I call them, they're not having buyer's remorse. They will. They don't yet. But he's not going to win the bread and butter vote of the city. I think that Adams has the incumbent advantage, and now he's got. I mean, this is going to break records, the amount of money being spent on a New York City race, and it's going mostly to Adams because the wealthy class here understand, the mega wealthy, they're going to leave, right? They don't want to leave. They will leave New York City. I know Mamdani thinks that won't happen, but that will happen, and they're pouring money into the race to support Adams. So, yeah, if I had to put money on it, I'd put it on Adams, to be honest.
Well, that is good news from a former New Yorker myself, but say once a New Yorker, always a New Yorker. Hey, I want to talk about a more disturbing story, too, that comes out of Virginia, where a civil rights complaint has been issued against a school, a very posh school, for fostering an environment that was, quote, hostile to Jews. And this included students having drawn pictures of Hitler as a strong historical leader, others talking about being happy of the events on October 7th. And the response from the school that they sent to the parents was to expel the kid, the Jewish kid who was the victim of all of this sort of bullying and terrible treatment. This is terrible, and this is in Northern Virginia, which is just outside Washington, D.C., in a fairly posh area. We still have a big problem in America with this anti-Semitism crisis, and it's not just, with university kids, is it?
Yeah, no, this is problematic, but unfortunately, it's nothing new. And look, first of all, it's crazy that they thought they can get away with it, right? To kick out the students who are complaining, who are being bullied. I thought we live in an anti-bullying environment. What happened to that? Nope. Now when it comes to Jews, look, this is nothing new, frankly. That for a number of years, even prior to October 7th, that anti-Semitism has become, in some ways, normalized. Particularly in private schools around America. And these private schools obviously feed into a lot of the universities, and we know the problems we have at university. We talk about that here ad nauseum. We haven't spoken much about the K through 12 schools, right? So kindergarten through 12th grade, which is the year before you go off to college. But yeah, like the ADL has done a number of surveys on this. And for example, they've said that half of private school students, I'm talking about prior to college, right, K through 12, have experienced anti-Semitism. Half. They also, in the same survey, 50% of parents said that when they brought up anti-Semitism to the administration, they simply poo-pooed it. They haven't done anything to fix the situation. This is what we face as a Jewish community now. This has been a problem. It's a problem we're facing, and it's growing in this country.
Ami, it's very grim to hear, especially that these universities are back where they were 100 years ago. We're going to have to leave it there, but on that note, I still hope you have a great, patriotic 4th of July.